Good afternoon, junkies. How's everybody doing today? Uncle Junkman, hanging out in Junk Force 1. Just wanted to say hello. Had a few minutes of downtime. And I figured that, I'd give you guys a little story time. A lot of people have been asking for some stories, some of the experiences I've had and things we've done. So, in the last video I had on my good old Borla hat. And a few people mentioned, commented on a hat. And I figured, here's a good story time. It's something I'd like to share. Now, some of you younger guys might not know who Borla is. Borla is a performance exhaust system company, and they make great exhausts. Now, when I was younger, most of us drove 8-cylinder cars. We had Mustang GTs, IROCs, Corvettes, Camaros. So, I was like the generation right before everybody got into the Honda VTECs and the Integras and those cars. And, the big exhausts were either Flowmasters or Borlas. Borla had a great sound, a nice rumble, a good strong sound. I'm not sure if how much they're out there now in like say the Euro cars or the Japanese cars. I'm really not in that trend anymore. But back in the day, they were tops. So if you like good sound and you got an 8-cylinder, give them a check. But I'm sure they've advanced with everybody else and moved along and got into the European cars in 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinders. Anyhow, my story, I'm going to take my hat off because it looks a little funny on my head sitting in here. Years ago, we were at, my cousin Danny and I were at the Viper Owners Convention. Now, people who know Vipers came out in 92. Small number, like I think there was only 200 of them. Then they were really available to the public in 93. And what Dodge did in 94 is they had the first Viper Owners Invitational. So anybody who wanted to register, a small number of people, were invited to Detroit. That was the first year. We got to see the Dodge plant. Went over to Michigan Speedway, watched an IROC race, watched a NASCAR race. No, it was an IndyCar race the next day. And then the second year was Monterey, California. Third year was the Indy 500. It was 96. And then the fourth year we were in Orlando, Florida. So I'm not quite sure which year this was. I think it was Monterey, California. We were, at the convention and we're walking around, and they have these booths, and they had, like a little convention. Obviously, it's a convention. It's set up with the distributors and aftermarket guys and tuners. And we were, walking around, and we noticed the Borla stand. So my cousin's like, "Oh, let's go over there and see what they have." Now, the early Vipers with the side exhausts, while were great cars, they didn't really sound good. And I don't know if someone had written it or said it, but they hit it on the head when they said these cars really sound more like UPS trucks than a performance car. Because yes, as well as a 10-cylinder, you only heard 5 cylinders at a time, depending on what side you were standing on. So they really didn't have a good sound. So we walked up to the Borla stand, and we have our big passes with our names on it. And there's a gentleman behind the counter, and he looks down, he saw our names, he goes, "Hey, you guys from New York?" And we're like, "Yeah." He goes, "You guys aren't related to the salvage yard, are you?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's us. That's our family." And he introduced himself. It was Alex Borla himself, the man. So, we in conversation, we started talking and discussing. We're like, "Well, how do you know, us?" He goes, "Well, when I first started back in like the 70s, when I'd need pipes and exhausts, sometimes they weren't readily available to me. I'd come down to the yard and I'd cut off either a Cadillac exhaust or a Lincoln or, any good old big GM or Ford exhaust. And, I'd custom bend it and, fabricate it, for Rolls Royces." He was doing a lot of Rolls Royce stuff, I think. At least if that's what I remember. So, we talked and it was great. Here's a man whose exhaust I had on my own car at the time. And, he knew my grandfather, my uncle, my father. He knew us, and just to be part of that history, that went back before, they moved out of New York, and obviously all this tremendous, huge company that they were and probably still are. It was just really a great time. It was really a fun experience, finding out that we had like a little history, like that 6 degrees of separation. And particularly with the company that I enjoy, because I enjoyed the sound, and I've owned probably 4 or 5 of the exhaust systems. Funny thing, a few years after that, my younger cousin had got a Raptor, a Ford Raptor, and I was able to call up Alex at his direct number, Alan at Borla, and a week later we had this beautiful custom exhaust that absolutely sounded phenomenal. on this Raptor. So there's the one little story time. You know, you never know who you're going to run into, you guys. You never know who you're going to talk to out there. You know, but those conventions were great. Got a lot of stories about those conventions. Maybe the next story time I'll tell you about how us New York boys started a sign stealing contest that went on for years at the Viper convention. Everybody trying to outdo each other. I hope you guys enjoyed the story time. We just had a few minutes. Looks like Blunt Man's ready for me to get over there. I got to fire up Junk Force 1 and do some work. I can't fool around all day long. So guys, have a great day. Enjoy. See ya.